Okay, hello everybody. I know a few faces, people I've worked with over the years and caught up with. Oh, Nick's sitting there. Hello, Nick. I'm quite a lucky person, really. Not because I'm sitting in IATEFL in Birmingham. Obviously, that's luck. I'm lucky because when I first qualified as a teacher, which must have been about 3 million years ago, it certainly feels it. Because I'm a native speaker, had a British passport, I could pretty much do what I wanted. There were lots and lots of jobs out there. I personally chose to go to Italy chasing a girl. Never caught up, never mind. The world really was my oyster. It was great. Yeah, I would say, go online, look for jobs. There was no online to go to then, but I could look in the newspaper, and there were lots of jobs I could apply for. And someone said to me, why have I got involved in this movement, this whole TEFL advocacy movement? And it's that. I wish in a perfect world that everybody had those opportunities, that a teacher from Venezuela could go and work in Japan, or a teacher from Mexico could go and work in South Korea. That global mobility seems to me a great thing to aspire to. I realised there was always going to be governments and visas and all that stuff that gets in the way, but that can sometimes, with, as people have said, advocacy and pressure can sometimes change. But my interest in this comes from reflecting on my own personal luck. When I was a lot younger, I could go where I wanted to. In theory, I could probably get a teaching job anywhere in the world tomorrow morning. I doubt anybody would hire me, and I'm not looking, unless the salary is good. But you know, I realise I'm in a very lucky position. And I've been, you know, working with Marek and written some stuff, which I mentioned in a minute now, for 18 months, something like that. And I think what's interesting is the debate is now becoming quite mainstream. Its position, it's there, and obviously having the plenary here this morning was quite a significant moment. It's no longer small groups of people in, I was going to say smoke-filled rooms, but you know what I mean, small rooms talking about this non-native stuff. It's up there, it's up in lights, and I think that is a really significant moment. It's gone mainstream. I mean, it's been around for a long time. Some of the research is actually quite old. I had this conversation earlier. It's been there for a while, but now here it is. We're talking about it. Trouble is, we're talking about it. Doesn't get much done. I think we need to do something. And when I say we, I mean we. In this, I call the LTF community, because I'm an old hippie, but some people call it an industry, some people call it a profession. But amongst ourselves, we need to start doing stuff, and that's really what I want to look at. I hope you won't see what I'm going to say as just an exercise in self-aggrandizement, because I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've done, but again, it's a kind of personal journey that I've been involved in. One thing that I have done is write about it. I'm an extraordinarily lazy man, and therefore a very lazy and infrequent blogger. Most of my blogs get read by about 20 people, all of whom have the same surname as me, so you can figure out who they are. But I had this idea that, let's see what happens. So I found a bunch of people, like Marek, like Nick, non-native speaking ELT professionals, and I wrote a bunch of questions that they answered, put it online, and the thing went absolutely crazy. So many responses. I think we got 300,000 views on the British Council website. It's absolutely out of control. I was amazed. And as I say, that's going mainstream. But the thing that amazed me most, depresses me most, was that I got hate mail from people like me. I was told, and this is a quote, I was betraying my tribe. Go figure. I know who these people are. You know, nasty stuff. Some Facebook stuff I reported because it was upsetting. So we shouldn't necessarily assume, I say it's gone mainstream, but these were people from within our community who, maybe I was being naive. I thought everybody thought it was the right direction. There are people that don't. So that was not particularly pleasant experience. So we shouldn't perhaps overassume that. So as I say, I've written. And that's something that we can all do. We can blog, we can Facebook, we can do whatever we want to do to get the message out there. I hope you don't get trolls or hate mail like I did, but anyway, let's see what happens. I'm a teacher trainer. I travel all over the world, and 96% of the teachers I work with are bilingual teachers in their own countries. That's what I do. That's what pays my bills. And I won't say where it was, somewhere in Central Asia about 18 months ago, going into a university to do a 3 or 4 hour EAP session. And there were posters around the walls of the university with an awful picture of me. I looked like Winston Churchill, pinned around the walls. But across the top, it said native speaker. I said, take those down. I mean, partly I was offended. Is that the only thing I have to offer? It's entirely possible the only interesting thing about me was the fact I'm a native speaker. But, you know, the words performing and monkey do rather spring to mind. So I said, take them down. But that is quite a serious point. I think amongst certain communities, there is a feeling that, hey, the native speaker, this is really something special. I'm just the bloke who goes round and does seminars. And, you know, my parents' language really doesn't figure as far as I'm concerned. And I think inferiority complex may be too strong a term, but what I'm happy to say is that I think a lot of bilingual or non-native speaking teachers are their own worst enemies. And some of you maybe fit into that camp, and that was certainly alluded to this morning. And I've taken the decision in the last 18 months or so in my workshops and seminars to go for a head-on and actually bring the topic up and say, okay, let's talk about this. And people look, what's he talking about? And sometimes people think I'm just trying to flatter them or whatever, win brownie points. But then you see people's faces. They think, whoa, there's a possibility I'm being valued. So I'll spend time talking about what non-native bilingual teachers bring to the party. I spend time on that. Sometimes opportunities present themselves. Commonly, you're doing something about pronunciation. Oh, we don't teach pronunciation because our accents aren't good enough. Really? And I just shoot that one straight away. Classroom language is another area people feel vulnerable. But if it doesn't present itself, I'll bring it up as a subject. And I think it's tremendously important. And it does empower teachers. A recent project, it came up in class and we talked about it and then we forgot about it. And then 3 days later, I got invited to the Facebook group that these people had created amongst themselves to talk about this very topic. I didn't suggest it, but I kind of sowed the seeds. And I think that's some kind of responsibility that I have to deal with that, to give people more self-confidence. And it is a question of confidence sometimes, or recognition, and saying, look what you bring. You can anticipate the errors the students will have a long time before the students get anywhere near it, because you know the language. And you know what's intrinsically different about English because you've done it yourself. I haven't. I picked it up somewhere in the south coast of England many years ago. So I think that is important. I do also think it's important to say that I do have sympathy with someone who runs a small private language school somewhere whose unique selling proposition has been for the last 25 years that we have native speaking teachers. I have some sympathy for them. Not because I think what they're doing is right, but they are in a situation. I said yesterday, it's a bit like saying to McDonald's, you've got to go vegan. And that's going to take time. I'm not saying it can't be done, but they have to go through a process with their client base, with their customer base, however it's organised, whether they teach in companies, whether they teach kids. Process has to be gone through. So I think it's important to have some sympathy with that. And one of the haters from the blog who wrote to me, I mean, he said, you hate native speakers, all this, you hate us, me. Well, I don't know what was wrong with the guy. I'd love to meet him. You much prefer non-natives. I don't. I like good teachers. I don't really care what they are or where they're from. If they can do the job, I'm happy. But also, I'm not going to shy away from the fact that bilingual teachers need language development. It's a fact of life. Well, quite a few native speakers do as well, but we'll leave that for a moment. But I'm not going to pretend that they don't. That would be silly. Of course, and I think that's part of my role and the role of others who are teacher educators to intervene and say, okay, you do need support. Often I find classroom language, that kind of stuff is tricky. Fine, we can work on that. Yeah, doctors need professional development. A friend of mine's a doctor. He's on courses all the time. Doesn't mean he's a bad doctor. But we all need that. I do. So I think it is a question of going out there and doing something. And in my own little way, I apologise if I sound this is some sort of ego trip, but in my own little way, going out there and chipping away at it, I hope makes a difference. If it makes one teacher feel, yeah, I might actually go and try and get a job somewhere, then I'm happy. Because that, as far as I'm concerned, is job done. And so have I.